Welcome to the Blue Mouse Knits. Today I have a free cowl pattern for you. This one is really fun because it involves some mosaic knitting. Mosaic knitting is a really fun and easy way of working color work without having to hold two colors at once. So you only work one color at a time, and it involves some slip stitches in order to get this nice color work. So this cowl uses DK weight yarn in two different colors. DK weight in big box stores is usually written as number 3 light. Color A will use approximately 160 yards, which is 146 meters, and color B, which is the white one here, will use 95 yards, 87 meters. For the sample, I used Yarn Bee Must Be Merino from Hobby Lobby. Now this is labeled as a number 3, which is a DK, but it felt a little bit thinner. So you could probably go into the sport weight range as well, depending on what you match gauge with. To knit this, you'll need a set of US 4 3.5 millimeter needles. You'll need a set of circular needles that have a cord, just like this one. I would suggest getting circulars that are 24 inches, 60 centimeters long, but you could probably get away with 16, 40 centimeter ones as well, but it might just be a little bit scrunched. This cowl comes out to be about 25 inches around, which is 63.5 centimeters, and it is 10 inches, 25.5 centimeters tall. Because the stitch pattern uses slip stitches, it's pretty difficult to measure gauge in this stitch pattern. So instead, what I've given you is the stockinette gauge worked in the round with the gauge needles, which are US 4s, 3.5 millimeters. So I got 21.5 stitches by 31 rows when working stockinette in the round. When it comes to specialty stitches, it's common that if you match stockinette gauge that you will match the same gauge with the stitch pattern as well. This is a great pattern for people that are looking to get into color work but might be a little bit intimidated by stranded color work or Fair Isle. This is much simpler. You're only working one color at a time, and it just involves knitting and slipping stitches. Here's what it looks like on. I really love my cowls to sit a little bit snug to my neck to keep me nice and warm, but not so snug that you're feeling like you're choked. So with all the materials and prep out of the way, I will now walk you through how to knit this yourself. This video is sponsored by Audible. I am so excited that they are sponsoring the channel. I'm not much of a reader anymore. I used to be as a kid, but as I've gotten older, I just find it really hard to concentrate and sit staring at a book. And that is why Audible is perfect for us knitters. I've always been a huge fan of The Lord of the Rings, but I haven't actually read the books. When I heard that Andy Serkis, who played Gollum in the Peter Jackson movies, had recorded the entire trilogy on Audible, I could not have downloaded it faster. I seriously told everybody I knew that he had done it. He does such a wonderful job of bringing you into Tolkien's world, especially because he does a unique voice for every single character. It's something I've been listening to while I walk on the treadmill at the gym. Nothing makes the time go faster than an audiobook. Music, I'm always constantly looking at the clock, but with a book, I just get engrossed in the story, and before you know it, my time's up. So for those of you that don't know, Audible is a monthly audiobook subscription service. They offer a wide selection of audiobooks as well as thousands of podcasts, some that are exclusive to Audible. As a member, you get to choose one title a month to keep from their catalog, including bestsellers and new releases. You can stream them using Wi-Fi, or you can download them for road trips or flying. And if you'd like to try Audible free for 30 days, you can click the link in the description or the pinned comment. And thank you so much to Audible for sponsoring this video. That is huge for the channel. So thank you guys so much for listening. Now let's get started on our project. To begin, you'll need to cast on 145 stitches. You can use any cast on that you prefer. We will be working in a knit 2 purl 2 rib, so anything that you think works best for that. I did a long tail cast on. We're going to work an invisible join in the round, so we need to make sure that none of our stitches are twisted. This doesn't look right. I'm just going to make sure that this whole line here is facing the inside of my cast on. Here we go. So still a little bit ruffled, but the loop side is on the inside of my cast on, and my right hand needle is connected to my tails. So what I'm going to do for our invisible join in the round is I'm going to take the first stitch from our left hand needle and slip it to my right hand needle. So slip it as if to purl, and then take the second stitch on my right hand needle and pass it over that slip stitch and off. And then you can pull on both the working yarn and the tail to close up any gap. Place a marker, and you're ready to work in the round. And that's it. We're just going to work a knit 2, purl 2 rib all the way around. So I'm not going to walk you through that part, but just go ahead and work that for about 1.25 inches. And for me, that was 10 rounds. So go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back here for the stitch pattern. Remember that I knit my ribbing in a smaller needle size. I'm going to transition into my gauge needle. Before we start our stitch pattern, we need to do 2 setup rows. So you're going to continue using color A, and you're going to knit 2 rows. Since I'm transitioning into a different needle, I'm going to knit off the old size onto the new size. So I'm just letting the right needle of my rib needle just kind of rest here, and I'm just knitting off the old one onto the new one. Can remove my marker for now and just keep going all the way around. So we've come to the end where we just have 1 stitch left, and you're done with your rib needles. We can replace our stitch marker and knit 1 more knit round because we needed to do 2 knit setup rounds in our color A. So go ahead and finish those, and I'll meet you back here. So to begin our stitch pattern, you'll need your second color. So you can just let your color A rest. And what I do is I take my second color, my color B, and I pinch the tail. And I'm a continental knitter, so I hold the yarn in my left hand. So I'm going to tension it with my right hand. So I wrap it around my middle finger. And this way I have some tension while I hold it in my left hand. If you're an English knitter, you can tension it around a finger on your left hand and then hold it in your right hand. So our repeat is a slip 1, knit 1 all the way around. And unless otherwise stated, you will always slip 1 purlwise with the yarn held in the front of your work. So I just dropped my color A and I pick up color B, and now I'm going to slip 1 purlwise with the yarn in front. So I bring my new color in between my needles to the front of my work, and I'm going to slip 1 purlwise. So I go into it as if to purl from right to left, but just slip it to my right hand needle, and now you're going to knit 1. So you bring your yarn in between your needles to the back of your work, and you're going to knit 1. And then you repeat. So bring the yarn in between your needles to the front, slip the next stitch as if to purl it, bring the yarn in between your needles to the back, knit 1, and it should look like this. So after I work a couple more stitches, I can release my tension yarn and just keep working all the way around. And it will start to look like this. You should have alternating colors of yarn, but we're not stranding anything in the back. So go ahead and work that repeat all the way around, remembering to slip your stitches purlwise with the yarn held in the front of your work. Go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back here for round 2. And for row 2, we're going to work the reverse of what we just worked. So we'll work a repeat of a knit 1 followed by a slip 1. And again, you're going to slip the stitch as if to purl with the yarn held in the front. So work a knit 1 first. Bring your yarn around to the front. Slip the next stitch as if to purl. Bring your yarn around to the back again, and knit 1. And that's it. You should be fairly familiar with this. And the way that I speed up the slip stitch, at least as a continental knitter, is I bring the yarn on top of my left hand needle, and then I slip it, and at the same time I move the yarn over, and then move it to the back. And then I knit 1. Then I bring my yarn to the front, I lay it on top of that next stitch, I go in to slip it, and then I move my yarn out of the way as I do it and bring it to the back. It's just a much more fluid motion, and this is what it should look like. So go ahead and keep doing that all the way around, and I'll meet you back here for round 3. If you want to carry your yarn instead of cutting and weaving in lots of ends, what I did is I would just kind of take my 2 colors and I would twist them like this. So I would wrap the current color over the other color and then back. And then I would just keep going, but that way it would be pinned along the back. You can do this however you like. That's just the way I found was easiest. And rounds 3 and 4 are also using color B, and you're going to knit around. So very simple. Just go ahead and knit around. Do that for the next 2 rounds, and I'll meet you back here for round 5. So for round 5, we are switching to color A. This is what it should look like up to this point. I'm going to drop my current color and pick up color A, which if you've been carrying it, should be nearby. And for round 5, we're going to repeat a knit 1 followed by a slip 1. And as usual, it's a slip 1 purlwise with the yarn in front. So we've done this before. We knit the first stitch, then you bring your yarn around to the front, slip the next stitch as if to purl, bring the yarn around to the back, and repeat. So knit 1, yarn to the front, slip 1, yarn to the back. And that's it. You just repeat that all the way around. And I will meet you back here for round 6. And round 6 has our first slip stitch that is different. So we're going to work 1 slip 1 purlwise with the yarn in back, knit 1, and then you're going to repeat slip 1 purlwise with the yarn in front, knit 1 all the way around. The only slip stitch that is different is your very first one. And you do this because your yarn is already in the front of your work currently. So if you were to slip another one with the yarn in front, it would cross 2 stitches and that would be too much. We're going to keep our yarn in the back of our work and slip 1 as if to purl, and then knit 1. And now we can resume our normal slip stitches. So bring your yarn around to the front, slip the next stitch as if to purl, yarn to the back, knit 1. So from here on out, we're always slipping with the yarn held in front and then knit 1. It was just the very first stitch of the row that had to be different. So that is round 6. Go ahead and work this, and then rounds 7 and 8 are just knit rounds. So go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back here. So I've just finished round 8. It looks like this, and that is the stitch pattern. You're going to repeat rounds 1 through 8, 10 total times. So I've done it once already, so 9 additional times after this. So go ahead and work those repeats, and I'll meet you back here for the hem. After you've worked all your repeats, you can go ahead and cut your contrasting color, leaving enough to weave in later. So now it's time to work our ribbing again. So we're going to switch back to our rib needle, which for me is a US 3. So I'm going to take my marker off for the time being, and I'm going to knit off of my current needles with my rib needles. And we're going to work in a 2x2 rib again. So knit 2. And for the first one, I kind of cinch it pretty well. And then I purl 2. And that's it. I just keep going all the way around that way until you've knit off all of the stitches from your current needle to your rib needle. So I've come down to the final few stitches. So I'm just going to knit the last 2 and purl the last 2. And there we have it. I have transferred from my gauge needles over to my US 3s. So now I'm going to knit the ribbing. So I want to knit 9 total rows of ribbing. We've already knit 1, so we just have to knit 8 more. I can place my stitch marker back on my needle for my beginning of round and just knit those rib rows. And I'll meet you back here for the bind off. So after all of our ribbing is done, it's time to bind off. We're just going to do a very simple standard bind off where you work in pattern. So knit your knits and purl your purls. So I'm going to knit the first stitch as normal, knit the next stitch as normal, and then I'm going to pull that first knit stitch over the second and off the needle. So go into it from left to right, pull it over and off. And then the next 2 stitches are purl stitches, so we work them as such. So purl the next stitch, and then again you pull the second stitch over the first and off the needle. And again, purl the next stitch, pull the second over the first and off. And you want to do this loosely so that it stretches with the ribbing. So I kind of loosen up the stitch after I work it. And you just keep doing that. So our next 2 are knit stitches. So knit the next stitch, and I work it loosely, pull the second over the first and off, loosen it up a little bit, knit the next stitch loosely, pull over and off. And that's it. You just keep doing that all the way around. So go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back here for the finishing. Once you get down to your last stitch, you can kind of pull it out a little bit, and you're done with your knitting needle. You can cut yourself a tail, and then you can pull that tail through your last stitch. And then you can thread that tail through a yarn needle. And now we're going to do kind of an invisible join between our last stitch and our first one. There's a kind of a gap here. We're going to close that. So to begin, you want to find your first bound off stitch, which I can count a few over. So here's one. It looks like a V, like this. So here's one, and here's one. And this is actually my last one. It's the closest V to the gap in between my first bound off stitch and my last. So we're going to go from front to back underneath both loops, pull through. And then do you see where our yarn is coming out of right here? The V that it's coming out of, we're going to go back into, also from front to back, just kind of into the hole where that yarn is coming out of. And there we have it. We've closed up our gap. You see how it lays flat right here now? I have a more in-depth video on this if you want to see it with a different color yarn. We can just weave in our ends, block our project, and you're all set. But there you have it. That is how you knit the Mosaic cowl. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you end up knitting it. If you do, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for lots more free patterns and tutorials.